So, this discussion topic, in more ways than one, is eternal. Hey folks, MasakoX here. Now, let's talk immortality, eh? Quite frankly, one of the most fundamental tropes attached to the Dragon Balls themselves, and not just the show. Immortality and Dragon Balls go hand in hand like every Saturday morning villain wanting to take over the world and whatnot. Amongst all the recurring wishes in Dragon Ball, immortality is the one that returns quite frequently, and has now become permanently associated with them. Some sort of symbiotic relationship. I mean, it's quite simple really. There's nothing really complicated about immortality. A lot of characters just simply want to live forever. Or at least not have to worry about the risk of succumbing to injury through silly means. But then sometimes there are reasons that are more pressing, such as sometimes they might need to defeat enemies way above their rank and pay grade through sheer attrition, or to enact their nefarious plan over time, the final piece in their respective puzzles. And also, the rules of immortality seem to change quite a lot from medium to medium, anime, manga, comics, games. So let's try and discuss how it exactly works. Right off the bat, there is more than one, obviously, type of immortality in Dragon Ball. But before that, let's focus on how one can attain this trait in the first place. It's not as straightforward as you might think. I can suspect that the most obvious answer that you'll be giving right now are, oh, you just get it from the Dragon Balls. And yes, Vegeta did want that from both sets that we're most familiar with, Shenron's and Porunga's. Zamasu got his wish from the Super Dragon Balls from Super Shenron, but we are pretty sure that the other types of immortality that we've seen in other examples of media can still apply, such as Torombo's 2 balls from the manga, or the Black Star Dragon Balls from GT. They can still work as intended if you were to ask for immortality on them. But there are other, more traditional means of living longer on display that don't have to be sourced from the orange orbs and can be seen in other shows and books, literature throughout history. There is of course the fabled Fountain of Youth, which apparently can stop you not only from aging here, but also from dying, as Turtle seemed to believe that from drinking it, it would protect Roshi from being killed by King Piccolo outright, as well as restoring his youthful vigour, for better or worse. But then of course there was the Immortal Phoenix that could bestow immortality upon you. This is apparently how Roshi actually got his unusually long life for a human, and how despite him living for 300 years, he is still somewhat functional. But weirdly, in somewhat of an ironic twist, the bird itself is not immortal, as it died due to being fed a tainted seed. Quite literally, a phoenix downed. Hi-oh! But wait, Dragon Ball Super's been retconning again. And this series seems to suggest that Roshi might be using now a different method to stay alive for longer than intended, as Goku and Krillin were actually tasked by him to get some paradise herbs from him from a spooky island forest that, Krillin two-parter thing. The place where we actually saw something that was totally not Ghost Napper. Yep. Nothing like him at all. Now you could argue that this might be needed for other reasons, this paradise herb, or it doesn't matter because it was simply filler. The fact of the matter is that it being here has certainly thrown up some sort of intrigue. Or maybe the original Phoenix story was just not true. But in the end, it is more likely that after the bird was gone, maybe our crafty old master had to look for other options to keep him living with a modicum of comfort, hence the paradise herbs. There are also some sources stating that, this might be simply down to Roshi's training and hermit-like lifestyle that kept it aging at bay somewhat. So you could probably see that trying to find out why Roshi's lived for so long, it's a little bit up in the air. It's quite debatable. But another method that could extend a lifespan beyond measure would be to maybe perhaps borrow a cup of energy from your friendly neighborhood planet, drain on its life force, like how a certain Ram Man did not so long ago. Now you could also maybe say, does the Tree of Might grant you immortality? No. It's not the same thing. The Tree of Might grants you life energy in the form of power. So the Tree of Might, depending on where you plant it, which planet you have it on, gives you strength, power, energy in that regard. it doesn't extend your lifespan. But then you can actually start thinking maybe a little bit laterally, unlike Toriyama. Because obviously, if you were to be a ghost and you somehow found your way back to the land of the living, that could also mean that you're immortal, in some sense. Like in movie 12, when all of those ghosts escaped the underworld because that machine broke, Janemba showing up. Because technically, your spirit and essence are still present. Thusly, you could be considered immortal, despite not having a physical body. That opens up the discussion of what it means to be immortal, but yeah, we don't want to get too metaphysical today. I mean, Dragon Ball's not best suited for that heavy topic kind of anyway. It's not a Studio Mappa thing. Going back to the more typical examples though, if you already had eternal youth on your side, and you were able to absorb a lot of space-time energy at the same time, you could possibly wind up with infinite regeneration, thus making you practically immortal since you can live forever and are indestructible. Finally, there's the more man-made route. The good old Dr. Giroux's process of cybernization basically means that you become impervious to things like aging and sickness by becoming mostly cybernetic, and your body being run by mechanical parts that are perpetual, like the Infinity Engine. So long as you have a good source of supplies or you can just repair yourself automatically, you can live for as long as you want. It's not certain though whether 17 and 18 can live forever yet, but at the very least, their aging has been slowed way down, as seen by 18 and Krillin in GT. So, when we know how one can attain immortality, the types of immortality available become pretty obvious. You can either have eternal life and not age, or you can have partial/full immortality when it comes to incoming damage. In short, what kind of immortality is useful for you? So let's have a look through these following cases of eternal life and shortly summarise them. First, the most obvious case study is Master Roshi, who basically would be on the eternal life business card in the world of Dragon Ball. As we mentioned before, he gains it either by eating some paradise herb with his breakfast, or getting eternal life granted to him by the Phoenix through some manner that the bird seemingly wasn't privy to. It couldn't live forever. Apparently, Roshi, because of this, is capable of living way past 1,000 years old because of it. But wait, that's not immortal. Well, honestly, in comparison to an average human lifespan, that's as good as immortal. Also, it's worth noting that as far as eternal life goes, this obviously doesn't stop aging from occurring and things that are not part of the package, as being immune to damage. Roshi can still die from sustaining injury, fatigue, and whatnot. And also, if you were to keep on aging still, and living 100 years, oof, it's got to be rough on your joints. The next notable examples are androids 17 and 18, who, like we said, are unlikely to age past their prime, nor would they die due to natural causes. We often say that Piccolo might be the last remaining Z-Fighter, since in the days of the MMO Dragon Ball Online, he is the only Dragon Team member still walking the earth, still around with the present characters and NPCs in the game's year of age 1000. But it seems that maybe he might be joined by these other three. They may stick around as well, because we could see, logically, Roshi, 17 and 18 being there. But with the twins, I could easily and thematically expect that they would choose their own destiny, so to speak. Now, curiously enough, we don't know if little Marin here has inherited any of her mother's changed biology, or how all of this would affect her aging herself. So that seems to be a bit of a mystery. And obviously, another character that would be on the previously mentioned business card would be King Piccolo, as he was the first bad guy in the series to wish upon the Dragon Balls for immortality, establishing the meta. It is possible, but unconfirmed, as usual, that this trait might have been passed on to his son Piccolo Jr. Another known Namekian culprit that wished to regain his youth is obviously Lord Slug from the movies, which kept the joke of him copying King Piccolo going. And then the last one, who was gradually aging himself down over time whilst he was gaining more and more planetary energy, was of course Moro. He is the best example that a good and balanced diet can keep you going for a long, long time. Now, let's look at the folks who are at least partially immortal due to how hard it is to kill them. We're calling that, again, partial immortality. And someone who is the very definition of partial immortality for us is Mr. Perfect Cell. This son of a tank has proven to be very hard to eliminate, and his regenerative abilities caused him to be as good as immortal. You know, the nucleus thing? If at least one cell of his can survive, this guy can still be classified as being alive and kicking. that is practically immortal in our books. It would take an angry Gohan to off you properly. But if he were to survive, he has stated that he cannot age, he could in theory live forever. But do you know who has even better regeneration than Mr. Perfect Cell? A certain pink blob. In fact, Boo's regeneration is so good that it's gotten to the point where not one single attack could ever leave any trace on him. You know, you kind of need a universal spirit bomb to the face to fully obliterate the damn thing. Also, we should probably mention that Android 21 got this level of regeneration as well in her margin form. Somehow. And the anime version of Fused Zamasu also could be like that, but ironically due to being flawed and not improved like the others on this list, as the fusion of immortal and an immortal being might not work ideally. It might turn you into a disgusting half Kai, half jelly man. Once it was noted that Goku Black wasn't immortal, yeah, that was bound to happen. This fusion was going to have a bad time in our eyes. Also, while his spirit may live on, the body seems to not share the same faculties, because in the manga, Fused Zamasu is fully immortal through and through. No floating essence seen whatsoever. He has to be erased wholesale by Zeno. That is unless you don't consider Heroes, where he is somehow able to survive all of that entirely, with a really dark and edgy eyepiece. Samarstu Mehavartes. Also, like we said, a ghost cannot die, because they're already dead. But they still can be Hakai'd, as Hakai can kill even certain gag characters, as presented by Dr. Mashirito. And I guess we can add the Metacoolers to this list too, because you need to destroy the big Getester to get rid of them entirely. Beep. Now, let's get to the big guns, the fully immortal crew. The poster boy of that is Garlic Jr., the first actual villain that got his immortality wish, but this didn't stop him from being yanked into the dead zone twice. You know, it actually feels bad sometimes to be Garlic Jr. Apparently, Janemba will never be truly gone as long as evil exists in the universe. Yeah, tell that to Gogeta. Then there is Infinite Zamasu. Who is that? Infinite. And he really needed the Omni King's intervention to be destroyed entirely. Just because, you know, there is nothing. And if we were to use the hero's lore as well, the likes of Mekikabura has not only regained his youth, but also gained true immortality for the sake of living forever and forever, being made into trading cards. Now, we can also assume that the likes of the GP and the two Zenos are entirely immortal as well, because after all, Zeno can still survive in a world of void left by a destroyed universe. You know, just floating there, without a care in the world. Of course, the Angels are immortal too, but only under certain circumstances, as we've seen with Beerus. And of course, if something were to happen to Beerus, the Angels would sort of be considered dead-ish. But as we've seen, if the cosmos deems it so and you've been a very naughty boy, you can be erased from existence even if you're an angel for certain transgressions. But there are some characters that can very possibly have one of the aforementioned methods of immortality / eternal life bestowed upon them that you might not have expected. These are Mercenary Tao, Master Shen, and Fortune Teller Baba. And something tells me that this entire group might have gotten their eternal life from sources very similar to Roshi's. Tao seems like he could be sipping from the Fountain of Youth, because before his transformation to a cyborg, he was already looking quite youthful in relation to his age, especially when you compare him to Master Roshi, Shen, or Baba, because they look old. And obviously, Mr. Popo has eternal life too, because he's a genie, and he's also hinted to have been around since the very first Guardian of Earth was a thing, to aid them with his wisdom. And, to sum up this video, it's important to remember that there are limitations to immortality. You can still be trapped in the dead zone, the room of spirit and time also if someone destroys the door so you can't get out, or you could be forever contained inside a Mathaba jar, or thing, if you're an evil person. As mentioned before, you should not really fuse with someone that is not immortal either. It's unclear if you can still feel pain as well, because some characters, like the manga Fused Zamasu, could not, but then again, Garlic Jr. looked pretty hurt. And also, he can petrify immortals via techniques such as glassification, or perhaps being subjected to Deborah's stone spit. And also, the overconfidence associated with lack of fear of death, that can contribute to your suffering. Finally, Frieza and Vegeta are good examples of characters that have realized that immortality, it's not all that great. It might be considered torture in of itself in the long run. Anyway, we hope that you enjoyed this deep dive into immortality of Dragon Ball. But what do you folks think? Would you wish on one of the Eternal Dragons for it? What other kinds of weaknesses can you think of? Leave a comment below and let's get this discussion going. And I shall see you in the next video. Catch you later!